Installing Docker on Ubuntu is easy, but since this is a public server, I would not make this the first command that you run. Before we install Docker, we're going to fix all the stuff that beginners usually skip, so we're not doing everything as root, leaving SSH exposed, or running Docker on a tiny VPS that could run out of memory later. By the end, your server will be safer, more stable, and ready for self-hosted apps. And if you want the faster version, I'll show you my VPS setup script that automates most of the manual stuff that we're about to do. But first, let's create a normal user account. Now, most VPS providers have you log in as a root user by default, which is fine for the initial server setup, but not ideal for managing the server day to day. So to create a new user, we will use the add user command like this. Go ahead and give them a strong password, confirm it. Ubuntu is going to ask you for some account details. I usually just hit enter to skip it and then enter that the information is correct. And by the way, the server that I'm using here is provided by Cometera, who is sponsoring this video, and they're giving away to my viewers $100 in server credits through my affiliate link in the description below, which means that if you use that link, I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you, and it helps support the channel. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is to give this user sudo privileges, and we can do that with the user mod command. And by the way, I do have all of these commands on my website, which is also linked down below. So you can just come in here, copy them, and paste them into your terminal window so you don't have to type everything out. All right, now that our new user has sudo privileges, what we want to do is set up SSH key login. I'm assuming you logged into your VPS with a password, and that's just not going to cut it from a security standpoint. So let's open up a new terminal window on your local machine. And what we're going to do is generate an SSH key with the SSH keygen command like this. And if you're okay with it, it's going to save in your home directory at this path. So go ahead and hit enter. You can optionally add a paraphrase and confirm it. And as it says here, now we have our SSH key at this location. Now what we want to do is to copy that up to our server. So we can do that with the SSH copy ID command with your new user's name at your IP address. Go ahead and hit enter. And that's going to copy that up to your server. Type or paste your password, hit enter. And of course, don't be like me and make sure you type your password correctly. You won't see anything on the screen, but type it, hit enter, and that should copy right up to the server. There we go. Now to make sure that worked, let's log into the server via the SSH command as it says right here. So we could copy that and paste it, and it shouldn't ask us for a password. If you typed in a paraphrase, it might ask you for that. But otherwise, it looks like we logged in successfully. And let's just for good measure verify that we do have root access with sudo-v. Type that password again. And because there's no output, that means we do have sudo privileges. All right, so now that we have an SSH key for our new user, let's go ahead and further lock down SSH by disallowing root from logging in and disallowing password logins completely. So before we do that, let's make a backup of our SSHD configuration file with this command right here. And now let's create an SSH hardening override file right here, and we'll use the nano text editor to do that. So hit enter. And from my blog post, paste in these configuration items, which, like I said, disables root from logging in and disables password logins. So we can save that with Control X, Y, hit enter, and we'll test out that configuration with sudo sshd-t. And there's no output, so that means it's good. And now in order for those changes to take effect, we will reload the SSH process like this. And just to make sure that we haven't screwed anything up, let's open up a new terminal window yet again and try to log in as our new user. And that worked. And just for good measure, let's make sure that root cannot log in and it says permission denied. Perfect. All right, so we'll get out of here, and as is always good practice with a new VPS, let's go ahead and do an apt update, which updates the packages that we're looking at. And then we'll do a sudo apt update to actually update those packages. I'm sorry, not an update. We just did an update. We'll do an upgrade to actually update those packages. And depending on how outdated your image is, this could take up to a few minutes. All right, that looks good. It does suggest to reboot, but we will take care of that later. In the meantime, let's go ahead and install a few tools that make system administration easier, like curl, wget, git, and we'll actually use htop and ufw later in this tutorial. So let's install those. And it actually looks like most of those were installed and at the latest version, so we're good to go. Now, let's check the htop command right now. And as you can see here, we are running a VPS with just one CPU core and 1 GB of RAM memory. There is no swap at this point. We're going to set that up next. Swap, if you don't know, is basically overflow RAM memory that exists on your disk. So let's set that up next. paste these few commands from my website, and basically what we're doing here is we're allocating 2 gigabytes on the disks at this directory. We're locking down the permissions with the chmod command. We're making that directory actually swap file, and then we're turning it on. So go ahead and do that. And then in order to make sure that persists after you reboot your server, we want to execute this command. And now we can verify that we have that 2 gigabyte of swap memory with the htop command, and you can see that we do right here. Next up, we're going to install a program called fail2ban. Let's make sure that we have that on our system. And then we can enable and start the service with the systemctl command like this. And basically what fail2ban is a program that helps reduce automated login attempts via SSH. So for example, if there's a bot that's trying to log into your server, after 3 failed attempts, that IP address will be blocked. So let's make sure that that service is actually running with this command. All right, it is. And let's check out the sshd jail right now. And at this point, nothing has been blocked or banned, but this will run in the background and help protect your system. Now, next up, what we're going to do is install the unattended upgrades package. And what this is doing, it looks like it's already installed. What this will do is install important security updates for you guys automatically. And we can launch the configuration window with this command right here and have it read through this. Basically, what it's saying is it will automatically download and install important updates for you. So go ahead and move over to the yes, hit enter, and that should be good to go. All right, moving right along, let's work on the firewall next. We installed a program called UFW, which stands for Uncomplicated Firewall. And what we're going to do is set up a few firewall rules. So baseline, let's deny all incoming traffic. Then we'll allow all outgoing traffic. The only ports that we do want open from the external connection coming in is the OpenSSH port, which is port 22. And then finally, we can enable those firewall rules. And now let's verify that those firewall rules are what we think they should look like. And what this is saying is that the firewall is active. We are default denying all incoming, allowing all outgoing, and for specifically port 22 on IP version 4 and IP version 6, we're allowing them to come into our server. So that way we can log in via SSH. Now, before we go ahead and install Docker, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I do have this VPS setup script on my GitHub, which automates most of the manual steps that we have done up until this point. You'll still want to come back to my blog post to do a couple other things like the swap memory and SSH keys, which are kind of hard to automate in a script like this. But for now, I will have this link down below in the description for your convenience. All right, let's go ahead and install Docker. Now, for this beginner-friendly Docker tutorial, we're going to use the convenient getdocker.sh script, and I know I'm going to get some comments down below about why not install it via the apt package manager, and the reason is because this is a beginner-friendly tutorial. I am making you aware right now that if you do have a production business critical system, you'll want to go ahead and install Docker via the apt method, which I will have linked on the blog post too. But for the sake of simplicity, let's go ahead and install Docker with the getdocker.sh script. So we have that on our system now. What we can do is use the sudo sh command to reference that and execute it. Go ahead and hit enter and let that do its thing. All right, Docker is installed. If you want to add your user to the Docker group, go ahead and execute this user mod command. And now in order for those changes to take effect, we want to log out of our SSH session and log back in. And to verify that Docker is working, we can do the oh so famous docker run hello world command. And as long as you see these words right here, hello from Docker, this means that your installation appears to be working correctly. And that's it. The next step is to actually put your server and Docker to work. So watch this video next to learn how to set up a self-hosted public website without opening any additional firewall ports. I'll see you guys over there.